Hello everybody and welcome to another brand new episode of the Iron Man series. So today we are going to be going over a good portion of stuff that the Iron Man basically did in this last week and a half or so. So the Iron Man has been doing a bunch of random different things as per the Iron Man style. We like to participate in all types of content with this account. That's just kind of how Iron Man accounts work and play in general. So the first thing that we ended up doing, we did this mostly at the beginning of the week, was we ended up spending some time in some Hellgates. We were doing 2v2 lethals and 2v2 knockdowns. Most of the time we were doing knockdowns, but we do have a few lethals for you guys to be watching in the background as I talk. So ultimately, I could of course give you guys the audio, like the conversation between like me and my partner here whenever we were doing these, but I think I have plenty of things that I'm going to be talking about in general today, so I'm not going to be having the audio in there. If you'd like to see that kind of stuff in the future, leave a comment and I'll think about it for future reference. So if you are not familiar with what an Iron Man account is, we are playing this game without using the auction house. We're not trading with other players in general, and we are also making all of our own crafting stations, and we get our premium pretty much organically. We've made a slight alteration to that over the course of my time playing, and I have a reason for it, and I'll talk about it towards the end of the episode because that's whenever I renew my premium, so we'll talk about it then. But as for right now, I'm going to be talking about PvP in general for the Iron Man account. So let's be realistic, all of us are waiting for the mists to come out. Whenever Beyond the Veil finally drops, PvP will actually be more enjoyable because I think the, not even necessarily PvP itself, but just like the aspect of exploring the game again. I think a lot of us are really waiting for that ultimately. I think Beyond the Veil is going to be bringing a ton of very interesting content to the game, especially for solo players like myself, because I do tend to play this game by myself or with one other person, so I'm looking for solos and duo content, so this is going to be pretty exciting, but until then, we're pretty much stuck with, what we have so far, which is basically Corrupted Dungeon is the only guaranteed solo content that we have access to, unfortunately. But of course, as an Iron Man account, we get to diversify the type of activities that we are doing just because, you know, we don't really have to do anything in a particular order, and we don't really necessarily have like this huge overarching thing that we're trying to accomplish in the near future. Of course, the ultimate goal of this account, if you remember watching this series from the very beginning about 2 years ago, our objective, theoretically, is to obtain an 8.3 set of armor without ever using the auction house, was like the thing I used to say at the beginning of my videos way back when. I think the goals still remained the same. I still haven't really decided whether or not I'm going to try to specifically craft my 8.3 set. I just feel like it would be very cool to see an 8.3 set of armor and items and stuff that says crafted by Ironbot, because I think it would be really fucking awesome. I think that that's something that I aspire to do eventually, but that's like the long-term goal of the account, which I don't really think we're going to be trying to get there anytime soon. Ultimately, it would just take way too long to do. Like realistically, I could just sit there and I could just go gather for the next 3 months straight and then probably just get it all done. It would take a long time to do, but I could probably do it. But there's still a lot of things that can be done on this account. There's a lot of content that this game presents to the Iron Man that I think would be interesting to make content with, so here we are. Of course, Hellgates is one of those types of content, but I'm going to be talking about just kind of PvP overall in general from an Iron Man perspective here. Realistically, doing PvP, it's not super rewarding. It's not as rewarding, and just in general, I've gotten a lot better at it. We've been picking up kills. I've been getting a lot more solo kills recently, both in the Iron Man on my main account. I'm just doing more PvP in general and just getting stuff done, which is great. I'm doing okay at it. I'm not like super concerned about it if I die most of the time. I'm a little more relaxed about it, unless it was some Warbow player, which beside the point. Actually, not beside the point. If you're a Warbow player and you're doing that in Corrupted Dungeon, then you invade my dungeon just to run away from me, you're a bitch. Don't do it. Moving on. In the clips in the background, you'll see us looting, and oftentimes, on occasion, you'll see us looting, and I will say that most of the time, whenever we end up splitting the loot, which we did kind of split the loot rather evenly as far as value goes, you see me typically gravitating towards mounts and capes, because ultimately, that's the only thing that I actually get from killing other players, is consumables and capes, realistically, because I don't even need horses. Like, I have plenty of those. That's not even a problem anymore. And you guys would remember from my last video that we actually unlocked recently tier 6 foods. So our food situation is slowly getting better, and I'm starting to think about working on upgrading our potion crafter, so our potion situation will also be getting better here shortly. So realistically, doing PvP for an Iron Man account isn't super worth it as far as like the actual like value of it all goes. Getting capes was awesome. I think I actually ended our little Hellgate journey with one of each type of cape from like the Royals, including Carleon and all that kind of stuff. I think I actually got one of each, which is really cool. I think I still have most of them, not all of them, because I've died a few times since then, just because that's Albion for you. But ultimately, this kind of stuff really boils down to just like PvP for an Ironman account. I'm looking for specific items, and realistically, those items that I do get, I mean, I can make them anyway. So realistically, doing PvP is more defensive than it is offensive. Although we have seen some very interesting and very good loots in the 2v2 Hellgates that we've been doing. Last night, for example, I think we ended up doing, or maybe it was 2 days ago, I don't remember. We ended up doing a Hellgate, and we ended up pulling like a chest, a purple chest from a lethal that was like 1.2 mil. Pretty awesome. I was on my main account at the time, so it wasn't exactly ideal, but still really cool. As far as like the chests go in Hellgates, we usually just do free-for-all as far as the items are going, except for the player kills, which will split evenly or however we decide, which, you know, I think it's fun. I think it's a nice little spice to add to the game, but ultimately, me and my friend are both not really super leaning in towards the meta. I personally don't. He kind of does, but I don't really care too much to really just force myself to play the meta. I think it's, you see the same builds every single fucking time in Hellgates. It's always Claymore Healer or something like that. So it's not super interesting to me personally, but we still do it. I play my main account with him so that I can actually have access to gear and stuff like that, so it's a little bit easier for us. But yeah, other than the fact that Ironman PvP isn't exactly ideal as far as like increasing the value of the account, we do have some things to talk about as far as value is concerned. This week, I actually had a really big goal. I think I started the week off with about 4 million silver, and I told myself I wanted to finish this week with having 8 million silver in my account. I wanted to have 8 million raw silver in my account without selling my items in bulk to the black market, which it was a bit of a task, I have to admit. We did end up completing that goal, spoiler alert, because we have to keep getting our premium because we have no choice. But we did end up getting our premium after a while. I did sell a few items to the black market at a reasonable price. I think my 6.3 nature staff that I put on the black market like a month ago, probably almost, I feel like, finally did sell, which was like 600k. And I did end up getting this pretty sweet undead cape from a corrupted dungeon that I was doing in the Royals, and it sold for a pretty penny. It sold for about 800k, which helped us a lot because I was never going to use the undead cape. I hate undead capes, and that's a throwback to the early stages of the Ironman account. So if you actually understood why, you should leave a like on the video. Speaking of which, if you are familiar with the Ironman account, or even if you're brand new and you're enjoying what you're the kind of content that you're hearing or listening to, my voice or whatever the fuck, if you're enjoying this video so far, consider subscribing. Every video I've uploaded these last like few weeks has been getting new subscribers, and I've been really appreciative of that. Thank you guys so much for doing that. It makes it a lot more enjoyable, and knowing that the account's actually like interesting people is always fun to see. So if you guys are interested in seeing more content from this, be sure to subscribe and make sure that you ring the bell notification icon so that you can see whenever I upload my video every week. So we had a lot of goals that we were working on and a lot of just random things that happened because, I mean, I like to play pretty casually, so we just have a bunch of random shit going on most of the time when I play this game. So we ended up doing tons of dungeons. We got a ton of fame on the account. We ended up maxing out a few different things. I will have just random clips of stuff like that probably playing in the background as I'm talking in general. One of the notable things is that we actually did get a specialization maxed out. I don't remember if I said in the last week's video that we hit level 100 Pyromancer. I'm pretty sure I did, but in case we didn't, I did that. We also ended up hitting level 100 Cleric Robe specialization this week, which was pretty useful. It'll definitely make getting IP more convenient in the future, and doing mid-tier corrupted dungeons is easier than ever because I have a variety of items that I have access to that actually give me that 900 IP very cheaply, which is fantastic. So another one of the things I have on my list of things that I ended up doing this week, we actually also did participate in a decent amount of open world clearing in the black zone for creeps. Most of the time because I was just running around the black zone clearing dungeons anyway, and I just happened to see some mobs, and I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna kill these guys because why not? I do think it's really fun though, finding these bosses or whatever. Like this big guy here, he ended up fucking dying, I killed him. Ended up getting 250,000 fame all in one go. It's super satisfying to see that. A couple of items, 50,000 raw silver, which definitely helps with my goals whenever I'm trying to get a large quantity of raw silver. It makes the process a lot easier for me. So it was very interesting to see all the different random things that we bump into when it comes to the black market, or rather the mobs in the black zone. of course, I was also, and I've been thinking about this a lot. One of the main things, of course, with the account is like, oh, well, I want to get an 8.3 set, har har. I do want an 8.3 set, but there are some things to be said about mounts. So I'm not going to be getting an 8.3 horse. I mean, I don't even think you can get enchanted horses. I don't think that's a thing. I'm not going to be getting a tier 8 horse. Instead, I'm going to make it my personal goal, and it's one of the big things that I want. I want a saddled swamp dragon. That is the mount that I'm looking for. I'll talk more about it in the future if I ever do get the drop, but you get the pup by killing swamp dragons in the black zone, and I've been looking really forward to just basically killing these things over and over on repeat and eventually getting that fancy drop. It's a fantastic mount. I absolutely love lizards. If you've seen any of my shorts that I upload on the channel, which I don't really do that I don't do anymore really, because I just, you know, no one watches them, which is fine, whatever, it doesn't matter. Irrelevant, but it's very interesting. And, you know, I like getting off my mount and killing these things and hoping just to see that, like, little bag. We did get our first scare, though, at some point in this video where I ended up getting, like, a fucking, a tome from one of them. I was like, oh my god, is it the... No, it's a tome. Get fucked. So, that's one of my longer-term goals for the Ironman account is I do want a saddled swamp dragon as my mount whenever it comes to my final set. That'll probably be the mount that I choose to take. So definitely Albion Online has this tendency to like kind of reward the players for sticking to one certain like type of weaponry, and while I do appreciate that it does kind of reward you for doing the same thing over and over again, I think it's kind of neat. But I like to spice things up. I like to change my gear around very often. If you're like a longtime viewer of this channel, you would know that I like to just change my gear on a whim and try out new weapons all the time in this game. So one of the reasons why, and this is actually truly starting to show itself more, why it's such a good thing for my account, is because getting items, specifically on the Ironman account, especially when metas change, because this is a very rock, paper, scissors meta kind of game, is that getting the specific items over and over again is just kind of like, if I'm going to keep using dual swords, stalker robe, or stalker jacket, stuff like that, I don't really even use those items anymore, because I'm just finding other things more enjoyable. And also what it does is it means that every time that I open up a chest to get items, there is a much higher likelihood that I get one of the items that I'll actually use. It's really convenient, but all of this to say that I actually, to make and craft certain items for myself, of course, you have to get the artifact pieces to craft artifact weapons and armor and stuff like that. So for my account, I use my runes and stuff like that to transmute them, or basically roll them for artifacts and stuff like that. And it's very difficult to actually get certain weapons, which is why I would love to use things like the energy shaper because I think it's fun, but I can't get them. Even if I were to say get like the Avalonian shards to potentially roll for one, the odds of me getting it are just so low that it's one of those things that this account doesn't really see those kind of items very often. That being said, it is something that the account is trying to do consistently, where I'm trying to roll for certain items and stuff like that. So that's something that is I talked about a lot in the past, and it's pretty neat. One of the more interesting things that Ironman does that main accounts don't typically do. Another thing that I do find really interesting about this account is that since we're getting so many different items spec'd up, I'm seeing a lot of different playstyles, and I'm really having fun with it, especially because I'm still doing Arena on occasion. Arena has been a very good place for me to try new builds and give it a go, and I've also been enjoying it mostly just because I think it's fun, and I also think Arena is a great place to try out random bullshit. It's also been pretty enjoyable to, like, I honestly, like, had to yawn, so I stopped talking and I lost my complete train of thought. I have genuinely no idea what the fuck I was talking about. And so it turns out I've just been kind of like sitting here on like the voiceover the voiceover button selected on my my recording software, and I've just been kind of ranting and stuff and just talking like that, honestly. So the clips have been at least playing in the background for the entirety of the time that I've been talking, but I do want to say that as far as like the actual goals and some of the things that I've been doing this week, we of course, a lot of our time was sunk into just trying to get 4 million raw silver, which for an Ironman account is not very easy. But of course, we like to succeed in the face of adversity, so we've been working on that, and we did end up achieving that goal. So I'm not really going to talk too much about the mathematics here, but I will show it on screen. So you're going to see an Excel sheet. This is basically just showing the math on like what I'm doing to buy my premium. I'm just kind of cheesing it up a little bit, making it a bit cheaper for myself so I can use the silver for more useful Ironman things. But this also did allow me to not sell my loot tab, and I'm gonna actually just give you a nice little scroll through here of this loot tab that I have. This is just loot from like killing dungeons or doing dungeons, killing players, random stuff that I've obtained just over the course of like these last like I've had this loot tab for a while, probably about almost like a month or so, where I haven't touched this loot tab, and it is looking gorgeous right now. I think it's about 13 mil if I remember correctly while I'm voicing this over and not actually looking at the game, but 13 million in the loot tab feels pretty fucking good. This is of course filled with a whole bunch of random items. I don't actually need to sell any of them, which is really good. I might break them down for materials. I might end up selling them anyway for silver in the future, but it's nice to just have them here to know that if I need it for any reason, I have all of this stuff that I can actually do something. Another thing that I did this episode. What else did I actually do this episode? This was kind of like a very just grind for it episode. I do have a couple of things I would like to work on next week. I think I'm going to be potentially upgrading my guild hall. So, if you guys don't know, especially whenever I stream, I have people telling me constantly, like, oh, you should be using your laborers. Laborers are so good. Why don't you use I hate laborers. I hate dailies in general as a gamer. I don't like them. I despise them, actually. So I don't really care for dailies. So doing the every single day, what's it called? The laborers isn't something that really suits me, but I've been getting into it recently, mostly because I've been doing the mercenaries. The mercenaries are okay. They're not super great, but they're useful enough for me to actually consider doing them, and they give me just raw cash, which I use on this account all the time for different things. Surprisingly enough, for an Ironman account, I use a lot of silver. So you guys can just go ahead and thank me for removing millions of silver from the game, just for the record, but that's beside the point. There's just a lot of things that this account needs it for, mostly transmutes for my tier 7 stone and whatnot, which I'm still lurking on like a couple of ideas that like of doing stuff with tier 6 and tier 7 stone. We'll just have to wait till next week to see if I actually do anything with that. I have been doing some gathering in my downtime waiting for arena queues, so it's been something that's been kind of just on the back burner for now. We'll see what happens next week with my crafting and building goals. I don't actually remember if I did any building in this episode, but if I did, I'll just throw it up right here behind me as I talk, because I haven't really actually watched all the clips, because I kind of just sat down and was like, oh yeah, I need to record, don't I? And so here we are. But anyway, I think that pretty much is going to wrap up with most of the important things that happened this week for the Ironman account. It was a pretty chillaxed week for the most part. I played a lot more than I typically did, so it did get a lot more done. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Ironman series. If you did and you made it this far in the video, make sure you've given it a like, because of course that does help the algorithm with, you know, promoting my video to other people, so that the videos can get the viewership that some of you claim that I deserve. But ultimately, yeah, if you guys enjoy the series, just keep watching. You guys are fantastic. I really appreciate your support, and I hope to see you guys next week for another video involving the adventure of the Iron Man in the next week. See you guys then.